Hello everyone. I'm Zia Ahmed and I'm involved in training and development of supply chain management. I feel honored today as Dr. Muddassir Ahmed has joined me for an exciting session on handling chaos in supply chain. First, I want to start with his brief introduction. Dr. Muddassir Ahmed has done PhD in supply chain and is very well known for his contribution to the field of supply chain management. He started his blog Muddassirism in 2015. Then many other supply chain writers joined hands with him. So he launched his forum, Supply Chain Management Dojo. Dojo is a Japanese word which means a place to meditate and learn. His website provides a lot of stuff for learning which helps people in improving their skills and fill their knowledge gaps. So, how are you, Dr. Mudassir?
I'm absolutely fine, Mr. Zia. How are you? Thank you for having me.
Yeah, I'm fine. So, how is the situation of COVID-19 on your part?
I think talking about, I can tell you I'm in Middle East in Dubai and UAE, especially I can tell. I think the business situation since it happened since March 2019 because it's almost 12 months and we don't it doesn't feel like it. It's sometimes it feels far too long and sometimes feels far too short because we just it's like a continuous one big long day, like a groundhog day, right? This It's getting better. I think it was pretty bad. I think the lockdown are getting better. I don't think people get freaked out if they hear right now that somebody got COVID, because our colleagues are getting COVID, our family members are getting COVID, and our friends are getting COVID. So it used to be like a big, I think a freak show, 8 months ago. But now I think people accept that there is a vaccine in place. So it seems to be there is a light of a very long tunnel. I guess there is hope. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Ahmed. So, can we start now?
Absolutely, sir. Absolutely. Over to you. Yes.
Okay, thank you. So, Dr. Mudassir, I just want you to, if you can define what is a supply chain chaos or crisis, some
Okay.
brief examples.
Yeah. So let's reflect on the word chaos to start with, right? So the chaos means a state of disorder, a behavior which is uncontrollable, right? And you don't know how to control it. You don't know how it happens, and so this is what we're talking about. And what I say to people is this: that fortunately or unfortunately, I live in an age where I've seen the biggest, let's call it, innovation disruption in the human history, which is I've seen internet, I've seen financial crisis, I've seen a pandemic like COVID, which happens every 100 years. I have seen recession in 2008. So all the big thing, which the events which happens, once in 100 years, I've seen it. I mean, fortunately, I've not seen World War, and hopefully, I never see one. Right. So apart from that, I have seen all historical event in my 40 years of life. Right. So from that said, coming back to your question, so this event what happened in about 100 years ago when the millions of people have died, right? So
Yes.
no one would have predicted of that, right? No one would have done it. So in the supply chain risk and supply chain contingency planning, all that exists. But when you doing your contingency planning, which is or supply chain risk analysis, you think, okay, what if the manufacturing plant there is an earthquake, for example, in extreme conditions, you think like that, right? That okay, where I'm going to make my product, or what are my suppliers available? What if the supplier go bust, and then you're going to find the alternative resource, right? What if your key players in your supply chain team who are very skilled, and for example, they're the one who knows their stuff, and there's no backup? How I'm going to replace that, and how I'm going to find the gaps of that skill within my team? And then you think about less retain somebody, less outsource. So even though you do all of those planning, and even from the customer, and you think, okay, I 80/20 rule, I have very few customers, and my business is totally dependent on them, or let's diversify, let's find new customers, maybe launch new product because you're heavily depending on a certain product. So as a business individual, we do think about risk and disruption all the time. We do. However, we do not think about a situation like COVID.
Yes.
So as the famous saying goes, that every chaos or every crisis brings an opportunity. So and I think the way right now, and I see this very strangely, positively, right? So even though we're talking crisis and all this sort of word, chaos, which is a negative word, and I see that as an event which has, by the nature of, by the God's nature or whatever you want to call it, right, has enforced us to think differently. So what I mean by that is this: that supply chain digitalization was a buzzword since last 5 years or 6 years, whatever I know, but nobody is really doing much in driving that strategy. Autonomous supply chain people are talking about, supply chain digitalization people are talking about, but the momentum wasn't there, right? But COVID has actually enforced people to use it because you can't travel. Because you can't travel, people are work from home. Then the only way you can run your supply chain or talk to your people or run your software, it's by digitalizing. There is no other way of doing it, right? It's just simply no other way. So it has forced that acceleration which we needed as the industry. So for me, that's a good thing. The second thing, what I also think about this whole obsession of we need to be in office and I need my planner in the office, I need my demand planner in the office, and I need my all my supply chain team sitting around me. I see some bosses being control freaks and managing that, and I always keep saying, as a supply chain people, 95% of us manage information, and we have to be very good in managing information. Unless you are in the warehouse, you are picking product and pick, pack, and shipping. Probably that's the only job or I can think of is, or you are in freight industry where you're moving product. They're the only few jobs which I think you got to be in your office or in your job to do it. The rest of the stuff, I mean, right now as a manager, when I manage people, I can be in the beach in Los Angeles or maybe sitting in the desert here. It doesn't matter. Well, the only thing I need is internet, right, to manage. So this also proves my theory that we haven't been, some of us, we haven't been to office for months. I mean, USA, they're still working from home, most of the countries. The point, it has also proved that point, that some of the, or most of the logistics function can be done online. So that leads to my third opportunity, which I think will revolutionize a supply chain, right? Which has happened to a certain extent in a digital marketing industry, which also happened in finance as well. That the the certain function, which is specialized function, like demand planning as a service or strategic outsourcing or maybe inventory optimization, which is like I would call it a package service. These functions you can be outsourced, and in fact training can be, especially can be outsourced and can be done remotely as well, right? So it has also will drive that culture that you don't need all your resources in your team. Okay, you need your people, you need your people who manage your orders and shipment, blah blah. But if there's certain specialized services, you can basically go and outsource, and that's what I do in SCMDOJO, inventory optimization, maybe demand planning as a service. You can come and ask me, and I can connect you with people who can do that, right? The point is, it will drive this whole journey of digitalization. So that's the, I think, the long and short answer of your question.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, so Dr. Muddassir, what is the most vulnerable part of the supply chain exposed to a crisis? For example, it is supply to customer, profitability, cash flow, inventory, or anything else?
I think the biggest okay, what is the driver of the vulnerability? I think the driver is the uncertainty of demand, right?
Okay.
Because this is where the biggest problem right now. I don't think any business can put hand on heart and just say, I know, right? Even after 1 year, I can tell, oh, I know what my demand will be after 3 months. They don't know. Nobody can, right? Because you pick any business, right? It doesn't matter, right? Even the e-commerce business who are doing pretty well, right?
Yes.
They are doing pretty well. People are making a lot of money. Amazon is going up. Who is going up? All that. Even those businesses who are doing well, they cannot say what will be good demand. People or most businesses who are not doing well in the risky situation cannot say how bad it will be. Or it will be 20% bad or 30% bad or whatever, right?
Yes.
Because their customers don't know, because the market don't know, right? Here, the whole saga of AI fails because there is no the problem with the as we say, history is the best predictor of the future. Our
Yes.
whole demand planning uses a history to predict future demand, the seasonality, the whatever. So here, the problem with supply chain right now is that all the uh, quantitative method of forecasting, which could start from something statistical or using the most sexy AI algorithm, fails because the data is not there to predict the future, right?
Okay.
And that leads to so if you don't know the demand, that leads to whatever the consequences will come up with. Because if you go optimistic, you might have too much inventory, then your cash flow will be stuck, right? Then you don't have enough money to fund your business. If you do not have enough inventory, or you're not planning your resource, or you are not doing your supply planning or machine planning, that you might have then you might losing business to your competition. And once you lose business to your competition, it just never come back. And I've seen it happening right now.
Yes.
That there's a business I work that one of the competition actually gone conservative in their estimation. They let people go. They did not plan the inventory, and then we end up earning some business and stuff. And it happens other way around as well.
Yeah.
So it all stems from the uncertainty of demand and the consequences which come with it.
Yeah. Thank you. You highlighted the uncertainty of demand in a very nice way and brief way. Thank you very much. Okay, Dr. Muddassir, are there any signs of an impending or coming crisis? So how we can find or how we can predict that some crisis is now coming?
I, I think what will happen is this: people will get used to live in this new normal, because I can see recently, even in the month of March, we're recording this video.
Hmm.
People are getting more brave right now, and they're going into those events, and they are basically meeting face to face, and there's some conferences happening, and governments are making initiatives. I think there is a bit of a level-headedness in terms of the how to cope with it and the distribution. So I personally think your question is very valid question, but it's more like on a macroeconomic question, right? So what is the impact of the last 12 months disruption? I don't think we are totally aware of it, because what happened is most of the global big events, take it from Tokyo Olympics, for example, to Expo 2020 in Dubai, to the cricket World Cup, IPL,
Yeah.
PSL, all those big sports events, global events, right? They have been postponed, right? So people are not traveling. The tourists are not going wherever they're going. The airline is getting bust. They are getting rid of people.
Yeah.
30, about half of the resources. Tourism industry has died.
Yes.
So there is a significant impact on a certain industries, right, or certain verticals more so than others, right? So that is a more structural impact to the global economy, right? And what we do not know is uh, how this structural impact will either going to impact the growth of certain countries and certain companies, right? When I think this happens, taking the financial crisis, this is almost you're putting a reset button, right? So when we put the reset button, then what happens is certain of the startups or or the players who have seen the opportunity, not just startups, maybe the old people, old businesses as well, not people, sorry, old businesses, they see the opportunity and they come out strongly,
Yes.
right, in this recent button. And some of the old players, they go bust, right? And that's what's happening right now. That some of the historically multi-billion-dollar companies, they are struggling,
Yeah.
and it's also possible. And I'm pretty sure in 3 years, 4 years time, we will be talking about some multi-million-dollar, billion-dollar startup going for IPO,
Yes.
who has actually born in this era of crisis. I mean, look at SCMDOJO. I mean, I have never had so much traffic on my website. I never sold as many courses, guides, and books, which I do right now. The only reason I do, people are sitting in front of computers, they're watching more videos. I mean, how do you know me and how do you know my videos? And
Yeah.
vice versa, because you probably have more time in spending on YouTube, or you might have seen SCMDOJO or courses. So, and I would think what will happen is that people will say, okay, in the pandemic, I started my own business, and here you go, I'm doing pretty well. So, I'm optimist by nature, right? But I also see some businesses will be worse off in 3 4 years time, and I think some businesses will be much better off in 3 4 years time.
Yes.
And
So
and the last point on this,
yes.
I also believe, and I was trying to make it at the point when you asked me the first question.
Mhm.
So it's very difficult. I mean, there's a famous line, right? The famous line is, "Oh, companies don't compete with each other; supply chain compete with each other,"
Yes.
right? And similarly, I have a theory that there is very little opportunity now that you can make product innovation. So everybody's making phone, iPhone is making phone, but you can only innovate so much, right? So there is a greater opportunity in the business model disruption, right? And I believe that certain industry which has been designed historically, OEM make the goods, then it goes to a distributor, then it goes to the wholesaler, then it goes to a dealer, then it goes to the end user. They will be disrupted. Like Uber has disrupted the whole transportation industry, like Airbnb has distributed the whole industry of the how you rent a place for your hotel and stuff, right? And I think certain industry who has been designed with that supply chain model, it will be disrupted. So anyone who can come up with the idea, because the theory of supply chain is this, or to avoid any bullwhip effect or any other consequence, that the consumer needs to be connected with the main manufacturer, right? So the more connection with the demand, the better it is in terms of responsiveness, the agility, the lower inventory, the lower cash flow, customers are happy, more efficient supply chain, more agile supply chain. So the business model where the which historically the depends on a lot of people, as I said, OEM to the distributor, to the wholesaler, to a dealer, to the user. I thoroughly believe that will be disruptive. And the people who's going to do that, gonna make a lot of money.
Okay. Thank you. So now I move to my next question, and it has two parts. So first is that what are the some of the strategies and tools for dealing with supply chain crisis? And second, how much effective use of supply chain risk management techniques can help us here?
I answer your second question first because it's a quicker for me to answer. Because when it comes to supply chain risk management, right, I wouldn't call myself an expert. Like there's Dr. Richard I'm interviewing in a week's time. He's an expert in supply chain risk and stuff. So maybe we can link back to his video, and when he's going to talk about the pillars of supply chain risk, the types of supply chain risk, when you talk about brand risk, supplier risk, customer risk, communication, the whole lot.
Okay.
So there is a tools available to manage it. There is a tools available for contingency planning. I think what you will start is this: you start with your business model, you start with your product manufacturing, your supply base, and you identify RPN. RPN is this priority number, right? So you put in all your factors, you define your factors in terms of key customers, key products, key markets, and then from those factors you come, okay, what is my highest risk items, and you deal with them, because you cannot deal with all the risk.
Yes.
Right. So the model we use and I use is RPN, which is risk priority number. So you list down, define the criteria, the weightage of each criteria, because some weightage is higher, right? And based on that, you come with that. So that's my short answer, because as I said, I would never claim myself to be the champion of the risk, right? There's people better than me who can answer this, but this is what I do as a practitioner.
Okay, no problem.
Right. But the second question was about the first part. I think you asked about the how to manage the understanding what's happening with the demand, the uncertainty, and all that. For that, this is I'm going to talk about. So if you see, I have a video I made, for almost 3 to 4 years ago or 5 years ago. In fact, that was my first video, and I talked about 5 levels of supply chain planning, right, and the hierarchy and the complexity. And I talked about on that video that, okay, if the y-axis is the complexity and the x-axis is time, then you basically say your annual plan is your budgeting, or whatever you can call it in profit planning in some businesses. Then your SNOP, which is more like a monthly process. Then your MPS, which happens after 2 weeks. Then your material planning weekly. Then shop floor planning on a daily basis. So all of them are connected. If those planning levels are not connected, then you cannot really translate your profit plan into your shop floor control to deliver the customer expectation at the right quality, the right time, to the right people, all this sort of stuff, right? The point I'm making is this, that this frequency of that reviews, let's example SNOP and stuff, if it is monthly for you, you understand your unconstrained demand, then you convert into your constrained demand, finding the right demand supply balance, finding the right inventory balances, identifying the key actions to deliver your strategy, and gap closing actions. It might need to increase. So if you have the demand review once a month, you might need to do twice a month, right? Because it's changing too much and too fast. Because what was the situation 4 weeks ago to your demand with your customers would be different after 2 weeks, right? So what I'm going to say is SNOP still stays to stays, in my view, one of the most key important cross-functional supply chain process, right? And that's why I train it. If you go to SCMDOJO/courses, you will find my course, and you can go and buy it. It has the 2.5 hours video and the presentation and the SNOP assessment tool. So I will recommend everybody to have a look. And for Mr. Zia's followers, I can offer a discount. You just need to say I'm a Mr. Zia follower, and I can offer you a discount,
Thank you.
right? Yeah. So the point is this SNOP remains to be a very, very, very important process to understand what's happening with your customers. So one more piece of advice there, that as I said, the history is the best predictor of future, right? And I mean, there's a saying of Warren Buffett that uh, the demand forecasting or business forecasting tells less about the what's happening with the demand, but more tells about the business or the forecaster, because some people are optimistic, some people are pessimistic, right? I am a by nature is optimistic guy, so I always believe things are gonna get better, and there's a people who think things are gonna get worse. So you need to find the right balance. The point I'm making is it based on theory, the quantitative methods will not be accurate, whatever the quantitative method is. However, the qualitative methods of understanding forecasts are much more applicable right now. So study the qualitative methods of demand forecasting, right? Which is consensus, talking to a customer, getting a gut feeling, how they feel about that, what stocks they are carrying, what product line they are selling, how they see the demand going forward. Once you get hold of that, then bring that information back to your supply reviews and see, okay, where are the gaps, how are you going to deliver, how are you going to maximize your capacity, how are you going to find the right people. So focus on that and make it like more frequent reviews and convert that into your production plans and supply plans.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, moving forward, I just want to know that are there certain businesses more susceptible to a supply chain crisis than others?
Absolutely, absolutely. So it's the one which is the depends on long lead time supply chain, right? Because the longer lead time you have to react to the demand changes, that means you're gonna take more longer. And as I said, link it to my previous answer, the uncertainty of the demand is higher. The changes is higher in terms of going either up or down. Either way, you don't know. We don't know about the business, and the supply chains which is have a long lead times, right? They are slow to respond, and because they are slow to respond, they are probably by the time they're gonna react on a demand signal 3 months ago. So by the time gonna get the inventory back or manufacture back in the warehouse, the demand will be something different. It's gonna be either lower or higher. So for me, I always say to people that. So I asked one of my recent graduate a question. Okay, what is the role of a supply chain person? What we are here to do in one line? Can you explain me? And she gave a very good answer, which is our job is to manage demand with supply. That's it.
Yeah.
As a supply chain people, that's our core job, right? Manage balance between the and which is the essence of sales and operations planning. And the second thing I say to people, do not focus much on on demand as actually, and which people say, oh, what do you mean by that? I mean, you just said our job is to manage demand with supply, and then now you're saying don't focus on demand as much. And I said, okay, but it doesn't work. What I mean by that is our main focus is to reduce lead time where possible, supply lead time, manufacturing lead time, batch order lead time, because the shorter the lead time, the more agile we are, the quicker we are in respond to demand changes, the less impacted we are with the demand variances, right?
Okay.
Less inventory, more business, more opportunity in terms of meeting on-time delivery, right on time, happier customer, business growth. So I see big time, most of the supply chain people, they spend so much time on the demand side, but very little time in understanding their supply lead time, their manufacturing lead time. Let me give you one very simple example, right? So when I was in Warwick, Warwick as a supply chain people, and I was keep saying, you have this manufacturing lead time of 7 days for a certain product line, yeah. And I keep saying, actually, when I monitor your work orders, you finish in 3 days, or actually 2.5.
Yeah.
Change it. But the typical manufacturing psyche is this: that no, if I reduce my manufacturing lead time, that means, oh, I need to do it quicker and I'll be more accountable. And that was pretty dumb in my view. So when I have opportunity to become the supply chain. So when you do that planning, so you say, okay, my supply lead time is 3 weeks, then manufacturing lead time 7 days, 2 days of pick pack. So when MRP, when you set up your MRP, you set up for about 7 6 7 weeks, right? But here's the point: when I become manufacturing manager, because I know when you create a work order, they're gonna complete in 48 days time, given all the manufacturing processes. I've taken 5 days out. Then suddenly my lead time gone from 6 weeks to 5 weeks. Therefore, better agility. Then MRP is not asking me to order more inventory. Therefore, I reduce my inventory, right? And my on-time delivery has improved while I've reduced the inventory. Nothing else has changed really.
Okay.
Demand stays the same. Everything stays the same, right? But by just reducing a planning lead time of 1 week, I have reduced inventory and improved my on-time delivery, right? And this is the mindset I'm trying to people. Focus on lead time, not focus on demand as much.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you very much. Okay. Now, one more question: that can you suggest some general guidelines to our viewers to help them avoid crisis and stay on track?
I think I answered this question, right? The general guidance is this: focus on your SNOP process. If you don't have any, please have. Don't it in a spreadsheet. I don't really care.
Okay.
Go and get my course.
Okay.
Do it and do it more frequently. You do this, you're gonna be fine.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, Dr. Muddassir, one more question which I want to ask. If you can briefly explain, what type of courses you are offering in supply SCMDOJO?
Yeah. So briefly, let me explain the strategy of SCMDOJO. So SCMDOJO, if you go to the website, the motto is there the same for last 3 4 years, which is supply chain knowledge and solutions for everyone. So right now we have a course on introduction to procurement, introduction to category management, SNOP, demand forecasting. I'm going to put on KPI, and there's a lot of guides and best practices. And I just recently launched the supply chain KPI dashboard. So the aim is to create about 40-50 different courses by collaborations with the supply chain experts, right? So working on the full LMS system, so it will become a full website. So our aim is to become the go-to place for supply chain folks, and the aim is to not to make it very expensive, actually as cheap as possible, because the vision is to right now, I mean, let me give you astonishing stats, right? So you know about Apex, right? You're in USA.
Yes, yes.
Right. So you know about Apex, which is ASCM right now.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, and they are there for ages. Allegedly, they are market leaders in CSCP and all this.
Yes.
How many members they have? What do you think? How many members they would have?
I don't have an idea.
Yeah, 74,000.
70.
Right, 74,000 only. For me, given the fact we have about more than 2 million people globally in supply chain, right? The reason this only 74,000 they have, despite being the industry leader of the in the supply chain community, it's because it's super bloody expensive. You have to pay 1,360 for the just to get the books, and another 1,300 for the exam, and I mean it's gonna cost you 26,000 if you're in India, Pakistan, or developing countries, or Africa. That's like you can do a master's for half the money.
Yes.
Right. I know that for a fact. If you go to a university, you can do a master's for half the money. Right.
Yes.
So if somebody asked me in Pakistan recently that, oh, should I do a CSCP or do a master's? I said, what's the cost difference? He said, oh, master is half the money. I said, do masters.
Yes, masters.
Right.
Yes.
Come on, get a degree. Right. That's more important. So the point is, it's ridiculously expensive. Right.
Yes.
My vision is to get to supply chain knowledge, a basic, to more than 1 million people, and I don't know how long it's gonna take me to do it, but I'm aiming to do that.
So nice of you. So you have joined. You are joined with other supply chain experts for this also now.
Correct. So I specialized. I have a few people which I've been working with, who is also supply chain trainers, and it's become like a marketplace. So, Mr. Zay, if you want to have your own course on supply chain, by all means, you can record it, post it, and I'll host it. We do that.
Yeah, good. So nice of you. So, thank you very much for your informative session, Dr. Muddassir. And if I get some questions from my viewers, will you like to answer?
Yes, please. Yes, send it over. We'll try to answer. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you very much. Thank you. Have a nice day. Thank you. Bye.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. Appreciate that. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.